Good morning, everyone. On this beautiful Seattle summery day, almost. We're going to be starting our service this morning by singing "This Joy That I Have," and we'll be doing it 4 times through with a different word at the beginning of what's called a zipper song. So this one actually asks for us to rise and body our spirit, I think, even though that isn't what we normally do. It's hard to sing this song sitting down. Okay, so this joy that I have, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this strength that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This strength that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This strength that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This joy again, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh no, this joy that I have, that's right, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Thank you.
This morning, I feel so much joy in the room. It's so fun. I think people are coming alive with the sun. The words for our call to worship this morning are from Margaret Weiss. Come into this place with your whole self. The parts that are raw and exposed, the part that is beaming with joy, the part that is seeking truth, the new, the possibility. Come into this place, open your heart, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey. Some faces new, others familiar, all welcoming you here now to this moment. Come and let us worship together. This morning, we are gathered on the unceded ancestral lands of the Duwamish people who are still here, carrying forward cultural practices and wisdom that have stewarded this land and surrounding waters for generations. As we feel ourselves firmly grounded on the land beneath us, let us remember that we did not arrive here by chance, but as the beneficiaries of laws that displaced the Duwamish from their homes, banned them from gathering their food, and strove to erase their language and culture. In this acknowledgement, let us have the courage to consider our role and our commitment in the repair of this legacy of violence and erasure. Whoever you are, wherever you have come from, whatever the color of your skin, whoever and however you love, however your body moves and your brain works, however you identify, you are welcome here in this beloved community. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition has no test of faith, no creed or oath to swear. We have instead the promises that we make to one another and commitments to healing a hurting world within and beyond these walls.
As always, when we gather together in community, we light a chalice. Our chalice lighter today is Leah Lasivita. And Leah, would you please come forward? This chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist heritage. May its heat energize us for the work that is ours to do. May its light make our vision clear and bright. May its warmth comfort us always. This morning, as we light this flame, we mark this time as sacred time. We mark this space as sacred space. Let us share in all of this together. And now, as Leah lights our chalice, please join me in speaking the words of our congregation's affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship. Thus do we covenant with one another. Thank you. And so welcome to the Westside Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Lisa Reitzes, a member of the worship team, and it is a great joy to be gathering with Reverend Carter and you all here in the sanctuary and viewing remotely for this service. Joy is a serious thing. So if you're with us for the first time, I see lots of those name tags, yay. For the first time in a while, welcome back. We are so glad that you're here to share in this time, to make some space in your life, to attend to your heart and your spirit, to come together here in community. If you are new to us, please visit our website, which you can do by scanning the QR code and the little card in the pews, where you can fill out a welcome form so we can get to know you a bit better, and we can send you our weekly electronic newsletter, The Westside Week. It is very good to see familiar and new faces today. Thank you for coming indoors. Let us now take a few moments to greet the neighbors around us, and I hope you will get to meet somebody new. Hi, Marion. Yep. It is always so great to see such enthusiastic greetings and people meeting each other. We hope you'll continue these conversations after the service in our coffee hour downstairs. So each week, congregants who agree to light our chalice are given the chance to respond to a question. This is a chance for us to get to know them better and for you to get to know them better and to invite more voices into our chancel. Leah has been asked, what does being a Unitarian Universalist mean to you during this season of your life? Leah.
Good morning. Some of you who know me kind of know that I came into Unitarian Universalism at a really pivotal point in my life. I was a freshman in high school. I went to a very small rural school in a small rural town. And my parents were, I think there were 5 times we'd been to church before we went there. And my baptism I would count among one of them, and my brother's baptism, those would be the 2. So they had really rejected what they had grown up with, my father Catholicism and my mother Protestantism. And so when they, when they told me that, I was like, whoa, something's happening here. And so we went into church, and because I was a youth and the youth met separately, kind of like they do here, I was led downstairs to the youth area, and they were very excited. They were talking very excitedly, and once I got someone pulled aside and said, what's going on, what's happening? And she told me that they were planning to go, I grew up in Ohio, and so they were planning to go to a protest in the Capitol to protest apartheid. And so two things happened to me in that moment. One was, wow, these are kids like me who apparently can still think about things beyond themselves. And I thought, God, instead of being scared, I thought, that's really amazing. That's amazing. And the second thing was, what is apartheid? And I really have a lot of reading to do. And so I became very involved. I started to go regularly, and then that moved into going to conferences, and then that moved into basically leading things at conferences, and then that moved into being a pretty pivotal part of the YRUU regional committee in the Ohio area where I was. And that really took me all the way through the middle of college, when being a 20-some-year-old and starting life and starting a job kind of took over, and all the vicissitudes that made it difficult to go to church on a Sunday morning. But I would go back because it was really, Unitarianism was really my North Star. I knew that spirituality was a muscle, and that every once in a while I had to go out and do some crunches, some fellowship crunches, or some some lifts every once in a while. And whenever I would go back, it was always, welcome. We're so glad to see you. Come and sit down. Instead of, where have you been? Why haven't you called? What's wrong with us? Which is, I think, probably what my parents heard. And I thought, I'm so fortunate. I'm so fortunate to have that. And so I would keep going back. And I was thinking about that as I read a news article a few days ago on how Americans are supposedly becoming less religious. And when they say that, it's basically they're going to church less frequently. They may say there's something, but they're going to church less frequently. So what's happening is that those congregations that are still there are becoming more conservative. And I thought, God, that really stinks. That stinks. And that stinks on two levels. One is progressives are as spiritual, if not more spiritual, than conservatives, and they need a place to call home. And two was that, where do people like my parents go to? People who had been away for a while and found a place to call home, and it spoke to them. And that's why I'm a Unitarian, and that's why I continue to be a Unitarian, and I continue to come back. And when people ask me, even though it can be a long, involved conversation, and maybe they don't want to listen to the whole thing, I try to explain to them what that means, and that it means fellowship, and it means exercising that muscle, and it means being part of something bigger than just your own, the duties and the obligations of life that can kind of take you under and keep you down there. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Leah.
So we invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee, hymn number 29 in your hymnals. And just a word about this. We sort of went back, and Carter and I went back and forth about, sometimes these hymns that are more traditional, with traditional language, are harder for some of us to hear. But this is based on Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And if you really think about the Ode to Joy, and I always do this translation in my head of all the words that don't fit with my personal belief system, and I just translate them to universe, or I translate them to universal spirit, or even nature. You can just plug them in there. So whatever works for you as we do. Actually, this talks about nature a lot in this song, so I invite you to enjoy the song in the spirit of the day. Okay. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, hail thee as the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the pain of doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the joy of day. All the works with joy surround thee, earth and heaven reflect thy rays. Stars and planets sing around thee, center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, blossoming meadow, flashing sea, chanting bird and flowing fountain, call us to rejoice in thee. Thou art giving and forgiving, ever blessing, ever blessed, wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth of happy rest. Ever singing, march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music lifts us sunward in the triumph song of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott and Marion and John. It is now our time for all ages, and Leilani Davenberry will be sharing today's story entitled Flap Your Hands, assisted by Soph Davenberry. So anyone of any age, please come forward to see or hear our storyteller better. Please come down and sit on the floor or in the front pews. And while we gather, let me tell you about the religious exploration activities that are going on this morning. So today, the Connect and Explore RE activities for all ages will be honoring parents, caregivers, and mother figures in our lives, exploring unique paths we each have in our experiences with parents, caregivers, and mother figures. Children and youth will be invited to mindfully create cards and other ways to honor the mothering in our lives, in their lives. We'll also continue with our sacred rituals, our collective altar, our opening and closing circles, our stations, and of course, our snacking together. I want to tell you that the fabulous teaching team this Sunday is Jeanette Hitch, Ellen Macomb, Noella Natalino, and Faith Iverson. Leilani.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm your storyteller this morning, and our book is going to have some motions, some actions that I'm going to invite you all to join in, okay? And some sounds, some words, okay? So you'll know when we get there. The book, the author, his name is Steve Aspel, and he's autistic, and he wants autistic people, especially children, to celebrate who you are, your culture, and feel pride and celebrate. So let's begin. Flap your hands. When you are feeling overwhelmed and the world's too much to bear, if your feelings bubble over, but they have nowhere to go, maybe try a stim. It might help to move. You could tickle the air in front of your face with sparkling lights. Or you could hold your hands by your ears, wiggling your fingers briskly. You might, flap your feet, kick them like splashy flippers. Maybe make a little squeal. Whee! If you wave your wrists like a conductor, the world is your orchestra. You might rub your wrist or your ear, your arm, or your lip. Try picking a word, and one that feels just right for you. Can you say it aloud? Crunchy. Meow. Meow. Yeah. Fish. 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 La, 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 la. Perhaps you could stand on your toes and lean forward a bit. And then, on the count of 4, we're gonna do a happy flap. 1, 2, 3, 4, flap. Flap, 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 flap. Flap, flap, flap. Maybe you could stand and spin around and around and around and flop down and rest. If you close your eyes and try to sway, do you feel a flow? Maybe a little more. And again, until you're calm. No feeling is too much to bear. No noise too jarring to hear. Everyone is allowed to stim and celebrate who you are. Why ASL? I want to include more people, deaf people, hard of hearing people, people who are neurodivergent, not auditory. So thank you.
Thank you, Leilani and Soph, for sharing that wonderful story with such beautiful illustrations. And now, as our children and youth go to the RE activities, let's all sing As You Go.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold
In a moment, we will engage in our offering, which is a collective act of generosity to express our support to Westside Unitarian Universalist Congregation and its many ministries with our gifts by text, check, or cash. Each month, we choose a community organization to share 1/3 of our undesignated offering gifts, that is, those donations not designated as your pledge contributions. For the month of May, our community giving recipient is Westside Partner Church Ministry. Westside had a long relationship with our partner church in Tarakna St. George, Romania, for more than 2 decades. Nurturing this rewarding connection helps us understand the foundations of our faith and allows us to develop personal relationships with fellow Unitarians across cultures. The funds raised through this offering will be used to support that connection through annual holiday mailings, cultural exchanges, and helping fund special projects for the community. So you can give by text by sending a message with the $sign and the amount you want to give to the number on the screen. For folks here in the sanctuary, prefer to share your gifts by cash or check. The greeters will move among us shortly. If you'd like your gift to be recorded as coming from you, please use one of the envelopes in the pews. And now, please enjoy this gift of music from John and Marion.
Thank you all for these gifts, which contribute to our community and also our partners, like our partner church. I've been on some Zoom calls with the minister there, and she's a really lovely person, so I'm happy to support her work. During each of our services, we like to take a moment to make collective space for holding the joys and sorrows of this community. We have some joys from Jennifer Dissetel and Ted Calhoun, who would like to share that they got married 2 weeks ago. Congratulations. And they would also like to congratulate their son, Henry Dissetel, for winning 3rd place in the Junior Olympics for the long jump. Henry achieved his personal record of 12 feet 4 inches and was so pleased. His family could not be prouder of Henry and all of his hard work. I saw a surprise, like, wow, someone probably knows how long that is. It sounds very impressive. We also have a mixed joy and sorrow from Charlie Wilson. He shares that he and his partner have had an amicable divorce, and he will soon be moving across the country to be near family outside of Syracuse, New York. He found an affordable lakeside home with abundant nature around. Charlie writes, "While enjoying our congregation, I've come to know that the influence we have on others is our most reliable afterlife. I give thanks to the congregation's influence, where y'all have shaped me for the better. I adjusted, revised, and returned these influences. Affecting civilization is my general measure of meaning. Maybe this is familiar to you as well. Thank you for serving me and letting me serve. In his gentler music, Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull wrote, "We are our own saviors as we start both our hearts beating life into each other." How I will miss this church community greatly. There will be a farewell celebration for Charlie. All are welcome to join. It will be the afternoon of Tuesday, May 21st at Lincoln Park, and there's more information in the newsletter. Charlie, we are so sad to see you go, and sending you lots of love for this next chapter in your life. On the first Sunday of each month, it is the tradition of our congregation to honor the joys and sorrows of our members and friends, neighbors, and loved ones with this embodied ritual. During this time, you are invited to approach our altar table from the side aisles, place a stone in one of these bowls with water, and return to your seat down the center aisle. Please, as you hold your stone, take a moment to fill them with prayerful intention. As you place them in the bowl, feel all that you hold in your hearts, mingling with the joys and sorrows of this whole community. For those of you joining remotely, you are invited to hold a stone or other sacred object and do the same. If you have an altar, you may choose to place it down lovingly, intentionally, perhaps beside your chalice. Let us begin. As we take this moment to hold in our hearts all of these joys and sorrows, known and unknown, in our community. Please join me in a time of meditation. This is a prayer for caregivers and ancestors by Sarah Goodman. Find a comfortable place in your body. Breathe as deeply as you are able. Hold in your mind the image of all things, all beings, coming from the same tree. Roots stretched in limitless tangles of connection and sustenance, interconnected and interlaced in a web of living and dying that is so beautifully designed and at most times invisible. Join me in breathing. Breathe in for our lives touched by ancestors, both known and unknown. Breathe out for living lives that will touch our descendants. Breathe in for folks held in loving arms as they were raised up. Breathe out for folks who had to make their own way too early in their lives. Breathe in for beloveds who we hold close in our hearts every day. Breathe out for beloveds we sometimes have trouble reaching out to. Breathe in for loving. Breathe out for losing. Breathe in for parents doing the best that they can. Breathe out for the impossible decisions they've had to make. Breathe in for those living with addiction, mental illness, and grief. Breathe out for those living with and caring for folks living with addiction, mental illness, and grief. Breathe in for caregivers of all kinds who give of themselves to make other people's lives better, more whole. Breathe out to honor this holy work. Let us take one more moment of silence together before Scott leads us in a time of singing.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
A couple of decades ago, not long after Jill and I had moved to Seattle, I found myself in the midst of a hard life transition. Moving to a new place, trying to find work and community, uncertain about my professional future, stuck and ungrounded, increasingly agitated. Fortunately, we had quickly found a really good primary physician, and I took the risk to let her know how I was feeling and the impact it was having on my physical well-being. She listened well and asked me questions related to depression that are now part of customary mental health screening when I go to the doctor. The one I've always remembered is, are you capable of experiencing happiness? In other words, under the weight of sadness and confusion and the effort to acclimate to my new life, could happiness break through? It made me really stop and think before I could honestly answer yes. There were moments that made me happy, that made me smile, that gave me hope. And it was a relief to realize that even if things were not fine right then, I was going to be okay. So I started looking for those moments of happiness, to register them, to make sure that I was open to feeling them. I've thought about that very important question during other tough periods since then. Answering it for myself is how I get regrounded and stay awake to a sense of balance and hope in my life. But these words by the educator and poet Jan Richardson have caused me to revisit and revise that question for myself. Take it up a notch. Are you capable of experiencing joy? And what does that feel like? Now, there's lots of different ways of defining the difference between happiness and joy, but for me, it's often physical, a particular sensation of being taken aback by beauty or caring or well-being. Could be music, often music that I know and love that again suddenly takes me. Music that's new to me, that grabs me. Words that people speak to me, words that I hear, words that I read. Of course, nature. Look at where we live. Every day, the sight of Mount Rainier down Rainier Avenue, the first time I saw it, literally took my breath away. And as Jill will tell you, often exclaiming about the way that light hits architecture. It's less a matter of confirming a feeling and more a matter of being smacked by a feeling. So here's Jan Richardson from her collection called For Joy. You can prepare, but still it will come to you by surprise, crossing through your doorway, calling your name in greeting. It will astonish you how wide your heart will open in welcome for the joy that finds you so ready and still so unprepared. I love Richardson's phrase, how wide your heart will open in welcome, because it describes what I feel physically, like the sensation of my heart in my throat or my chest prying open, or an unexpected laugh of delight or sudden teariness. It made me think of the glowing heart light in the E.T. character, or that great line from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day, and the illustration showing his beating heart barely contained by his body. Have you felt surprised by joy? I'll bet for some people here, the experience of the night sky this weekend might qualify. I have certainly felt it often here in our community, that gasp of warm feeling, delight, revelation. Here is where I practice the willingness to welcome joy, to let it call my name, and to find me so ready and still so unprepared.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That touched on my heartstrings. It was beautiful. After Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election, Ingrid Michaelson wrote this ballad about joyfully starting again following a tough season. There was so much joy in my neighborhood, she told Apple Music's Zane Lowe. Pots and pans being banged out of windows, horns and whistles, clapping, singing. The collective sigh of relief resonated with me in such a way that I had to get it out musically. And for me, I can remember that this song sort of touches on the refuge we found with community and friends and lovers during the dark seasons, you know. And it really occurs to me that for many of us at this particular time, there's this feeling of possible impending dark season. And some decisions that have been made that make things feel a little dark, and how we may bond a little closer with those people. But then there's this beautiful idea that, well, yeah, there's nature, you know? And I did go out night before last, and I sat laying down on the ground and watching the aurora borealis, and being both humbled by the magnificence of it all, and then also just feeling, wow, I'm a part of all of this. And the joy that rupture just came out of my heart in the experience of it. I literally laughed out loud because it was so beautiful. And I'm feeling a part of that. So this song just sort of feels like that to me. When the world was ending, I'd hold you in my arms, and we'd talk about the places we'd never been. When the world was ending, we'd hold on to the past, 'cause it's all we thought that we would ever see. But then the sun came right back, and the birds sang as if nothing had happened. And it's all right, it's okay, we will get another day to begin again, to begin again, to begin again. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I know that I will try to begin again, to begin again, to begin to live and love and breathe again. When the world was ending, we'd look up at the sky, and we talked about the last song we'd ever play. So far from comprehending, they'd lift us to the stars, never seen each other from so far away. But then the sun came right back, and the kids played as if nothing had happened. And it's all right, it's okay, we will get another day to begin again, to begin again, to begin again. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I know that I will try to begin again, to begin again, to begin to live and love and breathe again, and cry because I'm happy, and hold my friends like long lost lovers. Be kind to me and love each other. The world will get another day. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I do know that we can try to begin again, to begin again, to begin to live and love and breathe again. Thank you.
On Friday, when I set out to write the bulk of this sermon, I took my laptop down to Lincoln Park and set up at a picnic table looking out over the water, the one near where the walking path turns into a residential street, kind of nestled in the trees. And I spent a couple of hours there pouring out my reflections on joy, rereading some of my favorite passages from Adrienne Marie Brown's Pleasure Activism. It was warm. Even with the cool breeze coming off the sound, I didn't need a sweater. The waves lapped gently in front of me. The bright new green of the leaves on the trees created a dappled shade and rustling sounds. Birds chattered gently all around, and so did the people who passed by. And the Olympic Mountains lovingly presided over it all. So much beauty, so much pleasure. You know these moments, when you steal away little snatches of joy all for yourself. For you, it might not be reading and writing at the park. You probably have your own little moments of pleasure, but I'm sure you know it. This feeling of hiding away in a perfect little corner of the world for a short time. But noticing this, I started to wonder, why does it feel like these moments must be stolen or part of hiding away? Like I don't have a right to them. They must be grabbed quickly, clandestinely, my private little loot, a secret. This has been my relationship with pleasure as of late. I have been absolutely greedy for it, finding it so easy and accessible, but like something I don't quite have a right to. And this is a sign of progress. There have been times in my life when I would not have used the words easy or accessible to describe joy. I want you to take stock for a moment. Where are you with your joy? Is it an elusive feeling that might sneak up on you if it pleases? Is it an exuberant mode of being that you carry with you? Is it a luxury you don't have time or energy for? These are all so common. So it is Joy Month. We've been talking about it today. And I think this congregation actually does a really good job of sharing joy together. But I want to take this moment to reflect on the role of it in all of our lives. If you stick with me, we might get to practice claiming joy as a right, as a necessary ingredient to a holistic, spiritually deep life. So, sitting in the park, feeling light, centered, happy, and also literally doing my job. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm thinking, why on earth should this feel even a little bit wrong? And I think many of us have this type of experience because of the culture we've grown up in that has sent us some mixed messages about joy. Whether or not we've ever been a part of the Western Christian church, I think there is some theology out there in the ether that asks us to deprioritize our embodied selves and centers suffering for its virtue and redemptive power. Rita Nakashima Brock and Rebecca Parker talk about this at length, this idea of suffering as redemptive being central to Christianity. They wrestle with, it's this book, Proverbs of Ashes, where they wrestle with a religious narrative that centers the violence upon and suffering of Jesus as the central story of human redemption. They name and trouble the ways that people, especially women, especially people working for justice, are told that their suffering is holy, that they have a cross to bear. In a context like this, it can be hard to claim joy with ease, and it's a hard world we live in. These days, especially, we are confronted with violence everywhere we look. In our own communities, people suffer mightily at the hands of a failing social safety net. And many miles from us, but with lives deeply interwoven with our own, we witness the ongoing invasion of Gaza and a death toll rising every day. There are too many ills to name, with very real cost to human lives and well-being, to say nothing of personal challenges in our own lives. This is a hard world to live in. These are hard days to live in. For us to be well-informed citizens who care about the well-being of our neighbors, we must make room for this suffering. We can't be shutting it out. We must be moved by the hurting of others, and often we are called to join the struggle for the sake of justice and building beloved community. We are called to join the struggle. And so in the face of this situation, our joy can feel so small, so inconsequential, and yet it is vital. I'm a sensitive person. I am coming to terms with this after years of pretending I'm not. I'm brought to tears often when I listen to the radio, when I hear stories of people hurting in this world, or doing things that they're really proud of. The tears come. I have spent years trying to pretend I'm not sensitive, but I am beginning to believe that this sensitivity is a gift, and it's a full spectrum gift. As important as it is for me to feel this grief, I believe I should also allow myself that same permission to feel this joy. I invite you to investigate your embedded narratives around suffering and joy and the roles they play in your life, and to imagine other possible narratives. In the case of theology, in the book I mentioned earlier, Brock and Parker try to do this. They ground themselves in the belief that Judaism and Christianity claim that life is good and that there is an author of life who wants our freedom and joy. So this is where they start, not with the cross and the suffering. See the difference. For me, I have been learning from the Buddhist community I'm part of. I've benefited from the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, that suffering is a part of life, but there is a path to releasing ourselves from it. Illness, death, hunger, violence, these are all very real parts of our world that cannot be escaped, but they can be worked through in the effort to liberate all beings. That does not make the sources of pain themselves virtuous or worthy. You see, suffering itself may be a teacher, it may lead to growth and learning or contribute to someone's fortitude. While suffering can and does do these things, it is not the suffering itself that is good. The suffering itself is never good. In the case of justice movements, Brock and Parker talk about this tendency we have to glorify the amount of pain inflicted on movement workers in their struggle for justice, this lifting up of people as martyrs. But instead, they write, resistance is a transforming act, but it is not the abuse inflicted on the resistors that brings about the transformation. It is their refusal to cooperate with injustice. Direct action saves people, not the violence of oppressors. The suffering itself is not the virtuous or redemptive part. See, for me, I think whenever I think deeply about joy, it always comes back to justice. Ultimately, justice movements are about asserting people's right to joy, to live well, to live free from fear or hunger or violence. We ask why the students throughout this country are protesting for a free Palestine. It is because they are asserting that Palestinians, that all human beings, must have abundant chances to embrace their loved ones, to sing their songs, to eat their food, to enjoy moments of peace in the dappled shade. So we must live in all that we do. We must assert the right that each of us has to joy, all of us, including our neighbors throughout the world, including ourselves. This is no selfish thing that must be stolen and hidden away. This is the premise of Adrienne Marie Brown's spectacular book, Pleasure Activism. Here is a passage from her introduction. She writes, "I think a result of sourcing power in our longing and pleasure is abundant justice, that we can stop competing with each other, demanding scarce justice from our oppressors, that we can instead generate power from the overlapping space of desire and aliveness, tapping into an abundance that has enough attention, liberation, and justice for all of us to have plenty. The overlapping space of desire and aliveness, what a great place to be. I think we spend so much of our lives imagining pleasure and joy as a form of escapism. We work hard at our jobs all week, spend weekends or scarce vacations if we have them, trying to get away from our stresses. We are taught that it is unrealistic or naive to center joy in our lives, or that to have joy abundantly is just a mark of undeserved privilege. But joy is not a privilege, joy is a right. We have the right to pause and relish in moments of peace, to feel the sun on our skin, to take time to feel the pleasure of laughter with others, touching with others, just being without struggle. And this is not to negate times of struggle, but to lean into the fullness of this one wild and precious life. So I'll tell you about how I'm working to shift some of my narratives and practices around joy. Since January of this year and ending tomorrow, I finished this program. I have not only been serving as the minister here at Westside, but I've also been doing a hospital chaplaincy internship at one of the level 1 trauma centers in Portland. It is a valuable continuing education program, and it is very hard. I'm glad to be done. We work long hours, including 12-hour overnight shifts, and have rigorous administrative and educational assignments to complete when we're not on shift, and the work itself is so heavy. Our primary responsibility as chaplains in this setting is being called to the most emotionally and spiritually intense cases that the hospital sees, to be a loving presence to patients and families going through some of the worst moments of their lives. I don't think this is a time to go into detail about it, but please understand that I have been accompanying people through my fair share of violence, tragedy, and death. And in this work, I have a great supervisor, I have great mentors, and they always tell me this one thing that was really hard to understand at first, and I think I'm just beginning to get it. We must find moments of rest and pleasure inside the work itself. It is not enough to have a good therapist, a loving home to return to at the end of the day, spiritual practices to keep us grounded. We must also seek rest and pleasure in the hospital itself if we are to be well enough to provide care that is asked of us. This has been hard to let it sink in. I should take that long coffee break to catch up with a colleague. I need time in the garden to feel the night air after sitting with a family whose child is dying. I know that to feel the beauty and joy of these moments does nothing to negate the pain and the trauma. It is simply about living wide awake, allowing myself the whole experience. And people in grief know this too. I can't tell you how many times I've watched families sitting vigil around a hospital bed erupt into an uproar of laughter once they start telling old stories. The laughter is there too, mixed up in the grief. Joy is our right, even in times of suffering, and I really mean it. And there are other practices I've been picking up outside of chaplaincy. pleasure practices that are good for the soul. Since moving to the Northwest, I've learned how much I love saunas and hot springs and take time to go there whenever I'm in a busy season of hard work. And for a little over a year now, I've started dancing. There is a group of mental health professionals, therapists who I have managed to befriend, and they are big on restorative somatic practice. So every couple of months, they take me to house and techno shows, electronic music, and we dance all night. I could not tell you if any of us are good dancers. I don't know, it's not the point. With all that our work demands of us, it is good to unwind and just be together there in the spirit of fun and embodied expression. It is a delight that I didn't even know I needed. This kind of pleasure has been a gift that has helped me to understand the pleasure principles of the book Pleasure Activism on a deeper level. I want to share one of these pleasure principles with you, one that has been a challenge to lean into, and I want to invite you into that challenge. It is a mantra. My happiness is good for the world. Whoa. Even to say that out loud sounds improper, taboo, selfish. My happiness is good for the world. But I think about each of you in this room and how deeply and unequivocally I believe that about you. I believe that your happiness is good for the world. So I would hope that I'm included in that as well, and I hope you all could claim that for yourselves. Our happiness is good for the world. It is not naive or selfish or some improper pleasure to steal away in small bites. It is a part of living fully awake, being witnesses to the truth of this world. There is so much suffering and so much beauty. Neither one cancels the other out. But aren't our burdens that much lighter when we can acknowledge the joy tangled up inside and around them? Aren't we so much more able to show up in service for our human siblings when we are fueled by love and delight? Our happiness is good for the world, so let's act like it.
I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling very fed today. It feels good. All right, so I invite you all to rise in body or spirit as we sing The Fire of Commitment, hymn number 1028 in the Teal hymnals, if you're interested in reading. From the light of days remembered, birds of beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul at blaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Thank you. Please be seated. As always, it is such a pleasure and blessing to do this sacred work together. Many hands went into today's service, as you can tell. Scott and Marion and John, thank you so much for the music. Leilani and Soph for the wonderful story. Leah for our chalice lighting reflection. Nate and Henry in the booth on our tech. All of the ushers and hospitality folks downstairs and upstairs. So members, please keep paying attention to your West Side Week. You'll receive one on Friday. Lots of details in there about what's upcoming. First of all, today the auction team wants to remind the Dreaming Big auction donors and bidders to look for their email receipts sent over last week, which includes your contact information. If you have questions, please come downstairs today, visit the auction table, the last one for this year. For those not in the sanctuary today with a question, please email the auction team at auction2024@wsuu.org. For those of you co-sponsoring an event with multiple donors, we have sent the receipt to the person who listed your donation. You can contact them for specifics. And most importantly, they say, thank you, Westsiders, for a fabulous auction this year. And this is lovingly from Laura, Mike, Lisa, Leah, Liz, and Shannon. Yay. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to attend. I was at a different auction that night, but it sounded like it was a blast. I want to invite Jennifer Distel from our Board of Trustees to come forward.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Distel. So good to be with you this morning. Nurturing and sacrifice. That's what we celebrate, what many of us celebrate today. And whether you were mothered by a birth mother, an adopted father, an educator, or the neighbor next door, those who nurture us and continue to nurture us are due a great deal of gratitude. So at its core, that's really what the day is about for me. Whenever I walk into the loving halls of this sanctuary, I encounter person after person who dedicates themselves to just that. Shannon, Jade, Scott, Reverend Carter, our service leaders, our musicians, our AV tech, our greeters, our RA teachers. There's so many of us that are here to nurture. But I want to cast a specific spotlight on two groups right now that over the past few months have dedicated themselves greatly and sacrificed so much of their time and energy to nurturing us. I'm talking about our stewardship committee and our auction committee, as Lisa just reflected on. So our stewardship committee, working hard to grow our community, our capacity to care for one another and the greater area. This year, their efforts have assisted us with an increase of 6.5%. It's a much needed increase to honor our staff and to grow our capacity to expand our horizons. If you served on this year's stewardship committee and also our finance committee, would you please stand or announce yourselves in another way that makes you comfortable? We have Jill back there. People are getting a little braver. Thank you all so very much. And then Lisa just talked about the wonderful auction. I too was not present. I was getting married. And it was a surprise, so I couldn't tell anybody. So it was a pop-up wedding. For the auction committee, months and months of planning, organizing, orchestrating, IT platforms, auction item acquisition, party planning. It was so much work. But it wasn't just about fundraising. It was about spirit raising. It was about relationship raising. If you served in any capacity on the auction committee, would you please stand so that we can acknowledge you here in this space? Thank you so much, friends. Growing through nurturing, that is what we're doing. Thank you so much for all the hard work, and if you did not know the final numbers, the auction committee generated $37,000 for the congregation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The board thanks you, our community thanks you, each and every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I want to make sure that you've got save the dates on your calendar for two things coming up in June. First of all, our annual congregational meeting will be Sunday, June 2nd, 10:30 on Zoom. So get your living room ready, get your pajamas ready, get your breakfast ready, whatever. But there also will be a summer solstice picnic and tailgate in the parking lot on Sunday, June 23rd, 5 to 8 in the evening. Lots more details coming on that. Our next Sunday service will be on May 26th when Reverend Carter with Rick Taylor will present Everyday Magic.
Since we're talking about the June calendar, I think we're also marching in Pride this year. So that's June 30th. More details to come. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing words from Adrienne Murray Brown. Pleasure reminds us to enjoy being alive and on purpose. Pleasure is one of the ways we know when we are free. That we are always free, that we always have the power to co-create the world. Pleasure helps us move through times that are unfair, through grief and loneliness, through the terror of genocide, or days when the demands are just overwhelming. Pleasure heals the places where our hearts and spirit get wounded. Pleasure reminds us that even in the dark, we are alive. Pleasure is a medicine for the suffering that is absolutely promised in life. Pleasure is the point. Feeling good is not frivolous, it is freedom. And so now I'll invite Leah to come forward and release our flame. As she does so, may you go into your week blessed and blessing the world. We hold you in our love as you go.
Amen.
see any.